After using the sawmill, there is a bit of a cleanup to do, and we haven't really been doing very good cleanups previous years. So this time around, I was gonna do a little bit of a better one. I thought we stored the blade inside in a dry condition to preserve it and not have it get damaged by the weather. It's too expensive to leave sitting here, so that's the support for it are undone, and then the nut in the middle, and you can wiggle it off, and it's quite heavy. It's usually my dad who removes it and installs it, but this time around it was me. My dad did other things. You might hear a little of it in the background. He's producing material to space out the what we have milled so it can be dried. We don't have a kiln for drying it. We just space them apart and place it under a tarp. And I started trying to sweep things, and it's really tricky on the because there are kind of metal beams. You can't really force it down into that little uh, divot where it sucks up the sawdust. So I figured I would do use that as a vacuum cleaner. I was looking at maybe bring compressed air over and try to blow things down here to have the big fan, the vacuum suck it up, but figured out if I could find a suitable hose and do some kind of reduction. It was a little bit too small what I had done, so I had to add another layer of some foam I had laying around, and then a bunch of tape. It's not pretty, but it actually worked really well. Starting up the tractor and using the sawmill's own fan as a vacuum cleaner. Had a little bit of issues. There was some because it's kind of reinforced hose, and there was kind of a steel wire thing in the intake. It did help stop a few big pieces of bark, and I don't think the fan really likes sucking him through the fan, so maybe it's good, but it did slow down the cleanup a little bit, and it also wanted to kind of suck the hose deeper and deeper into the towards the fan. Once I was happy with the vacuum cleaning, it's not perfect but good enough. The PTO shaft from the tractor was removed. The wheel loader had the big bucket on, and we tried like pushing as much sawdust as we could into the big bucket. We had an old broken tarp at the bottom that helped not have the sawdust down in the grass as much. So a few pushes, and most of it was in the big bucket. It got so full we actually went away and dumped it. We have a place we dumped the sawdust, and then the last little bit we just used shovels to collect, and then where my dad had created spacers for laying things up to dry, we had a little pile of sawdust also. It was also taken care of, since it's, well, even if it's not gonna be used for a while during the summer, we put the roofs back on to protect it from the rain, but now it's not gonna see any more use until next year, so roofs are going back on. And then the big blue tarp was lifted, where we have some material to work with for future projects. And then it was just a matter of uh, spacing things out and putting these thin ribbons between them to allow air to circulate, so things can start to dry up. Some of the dry spruce could probably be used straight away for building material, but the aspens and that were, well, they were cut last spring, but and had been lying all summer, but they were still plenty wet. The blade was pushing water in front of it at times, so they will need some drying time. And with the last bit stacked, the tarp could be brought back. Once the tarp was in place, we were gonna tackle another issue we had noticed. The pit had to be dug to accommodate the kind of lower tub that collects the sawdust from under the blade, and the pit might have been a bit on the big side, so we're starting to see a little bit of cave-ins, and to reduce the cave-ins under there, and because it sits pretty damn level now, and I don't want to mess with that. So I would prefer to try and keep filling this void up, so not more material can migrate towards the center where there is a void. So put a little bit of wood down there and a plank, and start trying to push material in as far as I could. This took quite some time. After a while, I was worried the would get stuck. The piece I had put there as kind of a slide, but decided to remove that and just keep shoving things in there. Also got hold of a better stick, like a thinner stick with a piece screwed into the end of it to use as a pusher. And eventually had gotten quite dark by the time we finished, but that was the last shovel, and then the surroundings outside needed to be cleaned up a little. So the sawmill is winterized.